Welcome to the 2023 DunderBall League Power Ranking Show presented by DunderBall Films. We'll start off this year's show by taking it back to last season and seeing the final standings and where everybody finished. Obviously, we know at the bottom of the rankings was Alex Clark, who was quote-unquote tanking after losing his first 2 or 3 games, trading away his entire team to me before the season, and just making a lot of bad moves. We'll see how it turns out, though, because he's coming into this year with a whole new team, a lot of good draft picks, and a decent amount of money. Obviously, 9th, 8th place, no surprise there. We had Nick Miller and Tyler Wolf, staples at the bottom of the leaderboard. No surprise there, and they'll likely be there again this year. The biggest surprise, Warren Cornelius, back-to-back champion, finishing in 7th place, not even making the playoffs, finishing below newcomer Lance Ellis, who took over Vance's team after he quit. Matt Swearingen and Paul Matthews were separated by 1 point last year, leaving Matt out of the playoffs for the first time. The top 3 rounding out with Toby Brown, who had an impressive showing, Brennan Ellis, who surprised a lot of people and let them know about it, and the league champion, myself. So we will start this year's power rankings at the bottom with Vance Ellis, who's coming back into the league, a 2022 runner-up. Last year, quit halfway through the season, gave his team away. He's back with a new team, no players on it, a bold strategy to not try to win any games this year. But I think he does sneak in one because I think maybe last week of the season, he just says, screw it. I got the number 1 pick locked up. Maybe I'll put a lineup out there because he's going to have good players. He has a lot of money. But I got Vance ranked last, which is where he wants to finish. So here are all the key players on Vance's team. And quickly moving on from that, because Vance has no players. Potential targets in free agency. We all know Vance plans on making us spend big, and he's probably going to end up with some really good players because of it. But he also has to put a lineup out there. He has to play players that are going to actually play games. So he is going to, have to take some depth players. I think he goes with Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett at quarterback because they are starters, but they're not very good. Then Jalen Warren and Chuba Hubbard as well. I think he runs us up on Ramondre Stevenson and guys like that, but he's going to have players, so he's going to end up with them. I think he gets stuck with DJ Moore and D-Hop, which he's going to be okay with because he's going to offer them huge contracts. Nobody's going to be willing to match them. Same thing with Jacoby Myers. Maybe he tries to run somebody up a little bit on it and gets stuck with him, and then he ends up with some depth guys that he's going to have to throw in his lineup. Coming up in 11th in the power rankings, we got newcomer Nick Carter. Don't have a picture for you, don't know who you are or what you look like. I think he might win a couple games this year, though. As of now, he doesn't really have a lineup, but he does have the most money in the league, and Warren will surely be sitting next to him telling him exactly what to do. So here are the key players on Nick Carter's team. He has a little bit more working for him than Vance because he actually is trying to play. He has a quarterback in Dak Prescott, and then 2 rookies in Dawson Knox. So not much, but his roster is going to be built in free agency. And here are the players that I could see him coming away with. Kyler Murray, who knows what he's doing this year, how much he's going to play, if he's going to play at all. But that would be a good future pick for Nick Carter. I do think he comes away with Ramondre Stevenson. He's going to have to pay a lot for him because Vance will run it up, but it'll be worth it. And same thing with Deebo Samuel. I think that's another guy that's going to get ran up, but Nick Carter has the money. And then he's going to add a lot of good depth pieces with Samaj Perine, Dante Foreman, Tyler Lockett, Zay Jones, then get a couple of tight ends and just Gesicki and Tyler Higbee. Don't expect Nick Carter to win many games this year, but he could give some people some scares with if he's able to put a team together like this. Coming in at our 10th spot is Nick Miller, who's been in the league since day 1. Always is at the bottom of the league, or at least close to it. Everybody loves him, but the guy just doesn't know how to run a team. He is still somehow rebuilding in year 4. He's been rebuilding the whole time. And I think he might come away with 4 wins this year. That could be generous. So here are his key players. Doesn't have much. He has a rookie quarterback right now. That likely will change. DeAndre Swift, who we think is the starter in Philly, but we're really not sure. And then a few wide receiver 2s and 3s on their team. Gabe Davis, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Allen Robinson. I think the bright spot of his team could be Michael Mayer. I think I could be a little biased being a Raider, but I think he's going to have a really good season. Then we get to the potential targets for Nick Miller. He is going to have to add a quarterback, so I think Daniel Jones actually might be the best free agency quarterback out there right now. I think he adds some good running back depth, some guys that have potential to start on his team. Rashad White and Jamal Williams. Actually, they would start on his team because he doesn't really have any players. Miller, you fucked up again. And then Jerry Jeudy, probably the best receiver he could get. I don't know what this guy's doing. I'm getting sad even talking about it. Coming in the number 9 spot, we got Tyler Wolf with the replacements. This seems to be around where he likes to finish, close to the bottom, win a few games that he probably shouldn't win. I'm a big fan of Tyler Wolff as a person. Love the guy. As a fantasy football player, he just doesn't get it. But Warren loves him, and he's here. 4 wins. If you were to look at Tyler's salary cap, you would think he'd have a lot of good players on his team since he doesn't have much money, but his running back is Dalvin Cook, who's currently not on a team, Antonio Gibson, who is the backup on his team, and then we got Chris Godwin, Brandon Cooks, Rashad Bateman, none of who are the wide receiver ones on their own team. Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, though, I think this guy, I guess, is just going to be really heavy on the Ravens. Maybe you can get a Ravens running back, run Lamar, Rashad, Mark Andrews. He's got a lot of work to do with not much money to make it happen. So with that being said, here are the potential targets in free agency. I didn't write a lot of names down. Obviously, he's going to get more depth, but I think he really needs to go after Brian Robinson if he has Antonio Gibson, in case one of them gets hurt or if just one of them gets all the touches. And then Juju Smith-Schuster, he'll be the wide receiver 1 in New England. And Tyler doesn't have any wide receiver 1, so he's missing out on a lot of targets. So I think those could be the guys he goes and gets. Coming in at the 8th spot, we have the 2023 runner-up, last year's second-place finisher, quote-unquote, finally got second in Dynasty. Brennan Ellis, the train station, coming in at 8th. I predict him to get 5 wins. I could see him pulling out 6, maybe 7, because he does dedicate himself to this heavily. He will try to win. He will never tank. So I could see him getting more wins than this, but he really kind of just threw his team away and is really blowing this thing hard. I will say that if this is the lineup that is getting ranked 8th, this should be a much more competitive league than last year. This isn't an awful team by any means. We got Jalen Hurts, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Aaron Jones, Kenneth Walker, and David Montgomery is a solid running back group. They just all have other running backs around them that could take away touches. And then we got Amari Cooper, who had a great year. Christian Watson, we just don't know what he's going to do with Jordan Love. Michael Pittman Jr., who is solid, but again, rookie quarterback with him. And then Kyle Pitts, who has all the talent in the world, but it just hasn't panned out for him yet. Brennan does have the money to get a few big names in free agency. Damian Harris, I'm not sure how people are going to value him, to be honest, but he's always a good player, a guy you can throw in your lineup. Mike Evans, that's somebody I know Brennan's a fan of, and he's going to be out there. I don't know how much people are going to value him either. And then Evan Ingram, same thing. Brennan had him on his team last year, talked about him a lot. So Brennan might get some value picks here off players that he likes that other people kind of look down on a little bit. Coming into the 7th spot, we got the most undervalued, underrated player in Dynasty Football, Matt Swearingen. I got him here at 7th. He could definitely do better. First 2 seasons, he made the playoffs. Last year, he missed the playoffs by literally 1 point behind Paul. I see him at 7-7. Top 6 this year, make playoffs, so I could definitely see him making a push and getting in. Maybe if he makes some moves, but we know he won't. The key players on Matt's team, we got Patrick Mahomes, the best quarterback in football. His wide receivers are really good. Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, both top 10 probably receivers. Christian Kirk may have finished like in the top 10 or top 15 last year. He had a really good year. And then George Kittle at tight end, one of the best tight ends when he's healthy. Obviously, the massive hole on Matt's team is his running backs. He's going to have to figure something out there because Cordell Patterson's not going to cut it if he's trying to have a good team. So players that he could target, Jordan Love, just because Jordan Love seems like a Matt guy, seems like a Matt type of player. Same with Zeke. He's not on a team right now. He probably will be, though, at some point. Someone's got to get him. I think it could be Matt. Matt's a big Zeke guy. And then Isaiah Pacheco, I think, is a good player for Matt to fill that hole at running back where Cordell Patterson's sitting. Pacheco is a young player, had a really good season last year. So if Matt can get that, he could make a little playoff push. Coming in at that 6th spot, we have a playoff member from last year. I predict he makes the playoffs again this year. Toby Brown. I see him at 8-6. Could be better, honestly. His roster that he has right now is really top-heavy. If he can fill a couple holes, I could definitely see him moving up a lot in these rankings later on. So here are the key players on Toby's team. He's got Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson at quarterback, so shouldn't have an issue there. Same at running back, Jonathan Taylor and Derrick Henry could be the 2 top running backs in the league this year. If not, they both should be top 10 if healthy. And then Cam Akers. I'm not a Cam Akers guy, but some people think he could be maybe a top 20, top 15 back. And then receivers, he has 2 really good young receivers in Amon-Ra St. Brown and Chris Olave. I think if Toby really wants to compete for not only a playoff spot, but for a title, he needs to go big on tight end because he literally doesn't have one on his roster right now. And I think he needs to go big on a flex as well because, like I said, I don't think Cam Akers is the guy. You have a hole at tight end, a hole at flex. Hard to rank you higher than 6, but you have a lot of potential. If you can get guys like Marquise Brown and Dallas Goedert, that probably pushes you maybe even to the top 3. Coming in at our 5th spot is second-year player Lance Ellis, my father, 12's Army. See him at 8-6. I think he's right around there with Matt and Toby, kind of similar teams. A lot of star power on this team, but a lot of injury risk as well. As far as key players goes, he has a lot of really good ones, but a few question marks as well. Quarterback Tua, Anthony Richardson, who a lot of people think could be amazing for fantasy football. He also has Russell Wilson on that roster if he can bounce back. Running backs, he's pretty loaded there with Austin Eckler and Joe Mixon, as well as Javonte Williams, who's going to be slept on if he comes back as a starter. He was really good his rookie year. And then receivers, again, a really good room, but a little bit of risk. We got Stephon Diggs, who's amazing. Then Keenan Allen and OBJ, who are really good when they're on the field, but how often are they on the field? So for potential targets in free agency, I think the mixture of him not having a lot of money and him for sure not being able, he's not going to have any idea what the hell he's doing in free agency or how to work it. He's probably not going to come away with a lot, but I think he needs to go after a quarterback. He does have 3 on the roster and a little bit of potential there, but if anything's going to hold that team back outside of injuries, it's going to be quarterback. So I think Geno Smith's a good play there. I think some wide receiver depth just in case one of those players does go down, which they will. Kadarius Toney. And then a little tight end depth as well. He has Pat Freiermuth, but adding Noah Fant could make things a little more comfortable there. Coming in the 4th spot, we have everyone's favorite player, Dookie Bandits, Paul Matthews. Made the playoffs last year, finished 4th. That's where I have him ranked right now as well. He has coming in with a good team once again. I see him picking up 9 wins this year and talking a whole lot of shit and probably getting smoked by Brennan somewhere down the line. So here are the key players on the Dookie Bandits, a team that self-proclaimed will win a championship this year. I don't think anyone else sees it, but he does have good quarterbacks at Justin Herbert and Justin Fields. Running backs, he definitely needs some more depth, but Josh Jacobs and Najee Harris. Josh Jacobs was one of the best in the league last year. Najee Harris, when healthy, does do well. I don't know how high I am on him, but then receivers, again, he has solid players. Not a whole lot of superstars, but Terry McLaurin, Jalen Waddle, Brandon Ayuk, Drake London all can score you points, as well as TJ Hawkinson. The Dookie Bandits come into free agency with over $100 million, so Paul is definitely going to be spending. Again, I think he should go after another running back. I think James Conner's a really good player for that. Dude scores touchdowns. Calvin Ridley, I know Paul's a big Calvin Ridley guy. He really likes the Jaguars, so I could see him going for that. And then just a little bit of tight end depth, just in case. Next up, we have the 2-time, the commish, back-to-back champion in 2021 and 22, Warren Cornelius. I have him coming in at 3rd. Last year had a disappointing season, kind of just like threw a fit and stopped trying, to be honest, after he got caught cheating. But this year, he's coming in with a whole new mindset. He's ready to take back over. He wants a 3rd title, and he might have a team to be able to do it. So here are the key players for commish. He has Josh Allen, one of the best quarterbacks you can get. Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, Dameon Pierce. A few question marks at this position. Obviously, Saquon's a stud. Breece Hall coming off a torn ACL. Dameon Pierce going to be splitting carries with Devin Singletary. So a little bit of question marks there, but he is loaded at wide receiver with Devontae Adams and A.J. Brown, 2 of the top 5 players at the position, as well as Deontay Johnson. Commish does have money to spend in free agency, but I just don't think he does it outside of getting some depth pieces. I think he's going to keep his money, try to play some strategy. I could see him getting Will Levis. Someone's going to sign Will Levis to at least a 2 or 3 year cheap deal. I could see Warren being the person. Jeff Wilson Jr., he plays great when he's on the field. Not a lot of great competition in that camp for him. And then I think the big player that Warren comes away with is probably Mike Williams. Deontay Johnson could be a decent flex, or Dameon Pierce, but I think Mike Williams would probably take his team to the next level. Coming in at the 2nd spot in the power rankings, we got Alex Clark, who got last year, tanked, got a bunch of draft capital, saved a bunch of money, and made a bunch of moves, and now he's built a really good team to come and compete this year. Say what you want about the tank, it definitely worked, and I think Alex has the 2nd best team in the league right now. So here are the key players for American Muscle. We got Aaron Rodgers, who's on the Jets now. He's got him in a stack with Garrett Wilson. That could be a deadly combination. As well as Nick Chubb, who's one of the best backs in the league. Bijan Robinson, who's like the best running back prospect since Saquon. as well as Jahmyr Gibbs, who was drafted in the first round, Alexander Madison, who's going to be a starter now. And then he gets hopefully a healthy Cooper Kupp, who could be the best receiver in fantasy football, pairing that with DK Metcalf and Darren Waller, who is also on a new team. I hate to say it because Alex Clark is one of the last people I want to win this league, but this is a damn good team. Some potential targets in free agency for Alex. I could see him going after Tyler Lockett. He doesn't necessarily need receivers, but you can always have depth. Pair that with DK in case DK does go down. And then same thing with Cortland Sutton, just some good depth. You can probably get him cheap, and he's a good player. As well as adding another tight end just for depth. Darren Waller does get injured, so having someone like Tyler Higbee would be good for a team that's trying to compete for a championship. And in the first place spot, I have myself, the Indianapolis football team, returning champions, 2021 runner-up. Last year, I went 13-1. I don't think I'll have as much luck this year. My team is just as good as it was last year, but I didn't have any injuries or anything, so I think, I'll probably have a little bit of that this year. Take me down to 11 losses or so. So key players for my team coming back with another solid squad. We got Joe Burrow returning for us, Christian McCaffrey returning for us, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, T. Higgins, Travis Kelce, all returning from the team last year. This year, instead of Ramondre Stevenson, we got Tony Pollard, who's a starter now in Dallas, and Travis Etienne, who I'm really high on. And then a little bit of depth that we didn't really have last year. We're adding Devontae Smith, who I think could be a top 15 player. So yeah, I see a lot of trades coming my way with a couple of these guys. Not going to lie. Some potential targets for me. I don't have a backup quarterback, and I do like Derek Carr in New Orleans, so I'm going with him. Elijah Mitchell, just in case CMC goes down. Tyler Boyd, in case T. Higgins goes down. And then Juwan Johnson, because I don't have a backup tight end either. Pair him with Derek Carr. And these are the players that I may go after. So there you have it, the 2023-24 season pre-free agency power rankings. Obviously, after free agency, a lot of these things will change. As we know with preseason power rankings, they typically do not go according to plan. Last year I think Alex Clark may have had himself 1, and he got last. So, but here we have it. And good luck to you guys this year. Let's have some fun.